Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Community Candidate Forum on the race for the Coronado Unified School District Board positions. Just by way of making it easier for you to track things, since we have 3 4-year positions and 1 2-year position, the first 3 candidates are the candidates for the 2-year position. The other candidates, the 6 that are here, are actually all running for the 4-year seats. We have 2 candidates who were not able to make it, Lisa Maglioli and Dr. Mark Schur. Hopefully they'll be able to attend one of the other forums so you get a chance to hear them speak later. I want to make sure everybody understands, we want to keep it quiet, keep the applause, the boos, everything down. We want to be civil. We want to give everybody an opportunity to finish their answers. We've got a lot of stuff to try to cover in a limited period of time. Our moderator today is Dr. Carl Luna, who's a professor emeritus of political science at Mesa College, visiting professor at USD, and currently at USD, the head of the Civic Engagement Institute. Carl has moderated discussions like this pretty much all over Southern California for 20 plus years. Welcome, enjoy yourselves. We will have people taking written questions. Kevin, where are you? In the back of the room, if you have a question you want to submit, feel free to submit it in writing. He'll bring them up to me. I will condense them because some of them will be the same, and then I'll bring them to Carl. He'll get a chance to decide whether we have enough time. Carl's developed pretty much all of the questions. The candidates all got their opening question ahead of time so that they could prepare that. All the other questions are going to be new to them. They haven't heard. So with that said, I'll turn things over to Dr. Luna. Welcome again and enjoy yourself.
Welcome, everybody. I would like to thank Brian and the Coronado Democratic Club for inviting me, along with the candidates for participating, and most importantly, you, the residents, citizens, voters of Coronado, because this program is for you. This is one of those events where we almost have as many candidates as members of the audience. I'm not saying in a fair fight you guys would win, but you would take them for their money, or at least a little bit amount of time. All right, let me give a few opening thoughts, and then we'll go over the rules of engagement, and we'll start this process. Thomas Jefferson remarked there are 2 requirements for a democracy. The first is a free press. Without a free press, government runs the press, you're in a dictatorship. But the second is free education. Having a public that can understand what they are reading. Jefferson was an early advocate for free, universal, at the time, elementary education. Now we've expanded all the way up to high school education. Oh, once upon a time in California, the first 2 years of community college were free. That's something we might want to reconsider as we move forward in a world where you need K through 14 education to be able to be a contributing member of society. That's what this whole discussion is about, education. The mission of school boards is to represent their communities and guaranteeing our public schools produce students with the knowledge to become good citizens, able to participate fully in the social, economic, and civic lives of their communities, state, and nation. As such, members of the school board take on a tremendous fiduciary obligation to faithfully, to the best of their abilities, pursue the interest of all stakeholders in public education. I trust that each of the candidates here today are committed to being the best possible school board members for our community needs and our students and their families deserve. It's the critical job for you, the voters of Coronado, to learn about these candidates and from them select the best of the best to assist in guiding the Coronado Unified School District to graduate students with the knowledge and skills necessary to excel in higher education, career, society, and life with confidence to determine their futures, as the mission statement of the Coronado Unified School District states. So, that being said, let's get on with our conversation. I believe you were all sent, all the candidates were sent the rules for this debate, but I'll go over them briefly to the audience. I will be giving all questions to the candidates. When any questions which are collected from you will be curated and will to save time, to avoid repetition, to keep things germane. And then at my discretion, I'll select which ones to insert. I like to have at least 2 or 3 audience questions. Responses will either be 2 minutes with 30-second follow-ups from each candidate, or 1 minute with a 30-second follow-up at my discretion. Every now and then I might want to give more time or try to move something along quicker, depending on how the conversation is going. I will also reserve the right to initiate a follow-up question if I see the conversation moving in an interesting direction, and I'm seeing this as a conversation, most particularly between you and the audience, as opposed to a debate between yourselves, so we can actually cover a lot of ground. Germanus rules will be enforced. If you are not answering the question, I will move along to the next candidate. So we do not want filibustering going on any issues. Time is precious for us to be able to get through all this. Candidates' responses can be interrupted or redirected to me. I will interrupt you until you get back on topic if I believe so, but I'll do it in a polite way. Rules of civility and decorum will be enforced. There will be no ad hominem attacks. Ad hominem attacks will result in the immediate ending of your time with the question. We'll move on to the next candidate. And I will guarantee we comply with civility and germaneness. Respect is an interesting thing. The reason we are to address each other in respectful tones is to believe we are part of the social contract. Everything we do is driven by the social contract. I've got rights, you've got rights. We agree to respect each other and each other's rights. If we have a disagreement, we take it to third-party arbitration, government. So you guys become the third-party arbitrators for the disputes in the community, working for the good of all. So this is the sort of forum we would like to have to show how we have great candidates to be able to serve our school board. That being said, I will throw out the opening question. This will serve as the kind of the opening remarks for each of the candidates, their introductory remarks. Each candidate will have 2 minutes, and we're going to start at this end of the table and work our way down, and then every question, I'll move one person in. So whoever was at the end of the line moves up one, and by the end, the person at the end of the line will be the first person to talk. Everybody gets a chance to speak first on the question, hopefully, depending on how time goes. The California School Board Association identifies 5 responsibilities under state law and educational code of school board members: setting the direction for the community schools, establishing an effective and efficient structure for the school district, providing to support this district's superintendent and staff as they carry out the direction of the board, ensuring accountability to the public, and acting as community leaders as advocates for students, the district's educational programs, and public education. In so doing, board members must address the needs of multiple constituencies, district administration and staff, parents, the electorate, the broader community, and critically, students. As such, active and effective school boards are vital to the success of the community's public education system. Here comes a question mark. What are your top qualifications for serving in this position? Please discuss any relevant prior community service experience you have in Coronado or elsewhere. Please indicate what in your background has given you a firm understanding of and experience with state and national laws, education codes, collective bargaining agreements, and existing Coronado Unified Board policies governing the responsibilities and conduct of elected school board members. So succinctly, there you go. And we begin with Nicole Boucher.
Okay, so I'm gonna have to test this out. Hello, and thank you for inviting me here. I'm very excited to be here, and I want to give good luck to all the candidates. Everyone here is so well qualified. As for myself, I moved into Coronado with my parents in 1989. I have lived here. I was going to school for nursing. Oh, I'm getting off topic. I'm sorry. So I love this community. I have been a private citizen most of the time, but something put it on my heart to step forward and to become more a part of it. And that's part of the democratic system. How am I qualified? I've been a public servant as a nurse. I'm a registered nurse, and I always have to be upfront and honest with all my patients. It's a different perspective. I'm sorry to say, it's not teaching. Okay, so to get down to the point, what I do when I greet a patient, I always include the family. The family unit is the most important to me because it helps with the healing of the patient. So I would approach this same situation with the school board. I would come to the parents and also students. I care very deeply about each and every person. So I think the most important thing would be the choice, pro-choice, and to be transparent with everything. I would like to build on what is going well in the community and build on that as a positive going forward. My volunteer service has been through, I have been a medical volunteer for triathlons and also marathons. I've worked for the TREV Foundation, Trauma Education and Research Foundation, and also the Children of Hulu, California's. But I want to pass this along so we can have others answer more succinctly. Okay, thank you.
Candidate Kavanaugh.
Good afternoon. My name is Renee Kavanaugh, and I have a unique experience in that I've had two separate careers. My first career was in business. I have a master's degree in management with an emphasis in human resources. I've been part of collective bargaining agreements and negotiations for the management side. I was head of training and development for NASA contractor at Marshall Space Flight Center. So I'm familiar with OSHA regulations and requirements. When my husband and I moved to Coronado, I really wanted to change careers and pursue what was passionate to me. And I've always wanted to be a teacher. Every August when school starts, I could smell new crayons and the excitement in the air. And so I was able to go back and get my multiple subject credential at San Diego State University and started teaching here in the school district. I'm familiar with the educational code. I've been regularly attending board meetings for 5 years. I've served on the board of the Coronado Schools Foundation. Gosh, I don't even know, 5, 6, 7 years, and was chair of the board for 2+ years. That role, I had an opportunity to work closely with administration, creating long-term goals and raising money that would help bridge the gap between what administration and parents wanted to do and provide for students and what they were physically able to do. So being able to work with a broad spectrum of the community. I've been president of several other groups, Optimist Club, Women's Club. I think I have a good feel for the community out there, and I look forward to serving you, the students and the families.
Candidate Manchin.
It's Machin.
Manchin.
I'm Jerry, and it's great to be here. I'm a retired teacher. I taught in public school and in a private setting. I'm a parent of 4 adult children, well, 2 adult children and 2 teenagers. And I have 4 grandchildren. I've been attending the school board meetings for the last 1.5 years out of concern as a parent. And I've learned a lot about, by looking at the agenda, I've learned a lot about the school, the ed code, about all the procedures and how things work. I've been educating myself on the procedures of the board. And so anyway, that's my experience on that. As far as volunteering, I've done a lot that's been more under the radar. I don't like to advertise that. I just like to see a need and then try to meet it. And so that's how I conduct myself in that more of a personal manner. So anyway, thank you.
Candidate Anderson Cruz.
Good afternoon. Can you hear me? I have a friend in the audience who's going to let me know if I don't talk loud enough. In terms of professional background, I began my career as a high school English teacher and clinical reading specialist. Subsequent to 25 years of teaching, I completed my doctorate at the University of Southern California, which is close to another school. I was invited to join the graduate faculty at USC, where I designed and taught graduate courses in the doctoral program and the master's program. I also served on 2 blue ribbon panels, the Language Arts Advisory Panel for the Department of Education Commission on Teacher Credentialing. And my task was to be one of the authors that aligned the K-12 and language arts standards with the professional teaching standards. The other blue ribbon panel was a language arts program review panel, where I was one of the reviewers of language arts programs throughout the state of California at public and private universities for accreditation purposes. I also worked as a professional education consultant for the National Evaluation System, where I did a test item analysis, looking at each test item to ensure that it was aligned with the CSAT. My decades of school service span over 30 years and are the foundation for my appreciation of the role that parents play in the academic achievement of their children. Too many committees to mention. CUSD Strategic Planning Committee, Board of Trustees, until I was elected to the GSD Board of Trustees. I was serving on the CSF Board of Trustees. I'm especially aware of and value the input and feedback from parents and community members, because we all want the same thing, to support what is the best education for all of our children. Thank you.
Candidate Iverson, as soon as we get our, please, everybody be sure to check their phones. If this was a classroom, I would be confiscating.
All right, thank you, Carl. My name is Mike Iverson, and moved to Coronado about 5 years ago. Carl, I got to tell you, I got the question and it made me frighteningly nervous. I'm like, oh my God, I feel like I'm back in college. This is like an essay question. I think, look, fundamentally, I got into this race because I think we need parent leadership on our school board. Okay, so over the last 2.5 years, I'll readily admit that, you know, school board was like this before the pandemic, was like this kind of arbitrary thing that was out there that we all knew existed as parents. And we all went on our merry way and sent our kids to school every day, assuming that, you know, the school board was going to do the right thing for our kids, right? And I think over the last 2.5 years, what I saw was that wasn't happening. And I was incredibly surprised that we had a bunch of people on the board that didn't even have kids in our school district. Something I find just crazy. So I think that was really my core motivation, is I think we need parents engaged in the leadership of our schools. If we want schools to do right by our kids and focus on what they need, you know, education and support, then we need to take responsibility and do that. I couldn't have done that 2.5 years ago because I wasn't a citizen, but I became a citizen in 2021. I'm originally from Denmark and grew up all over the world. I went to school in like 6 different countries. So I think in terms of, you know, volunteerism and understanding all the regulations in California, as I understand it, we're all going to get trained if we get elected to do that. So I'll be the first to admit that I don't have a proper hold on all that. I have been working in the business world for the last 25 plus years in the medical device industry, currently run a medical device company up in the Bay Area. And so ultimately, I think the school board's reasons for existence is really to use the budgetary power that it has to hold the leadership and the teachers in the school district accountable to academic excellence for our kids. And that's what I intend to do if I get elected. So thank you very much.
Hi, I'm Stephanie Anderson, and I have a very long history in Coronado. My grandparents moved to Coronado during the Depression. My mother and my aunt grew up in Coronado, and I was born in Coronado. I went to Village, then I went to the middle school, then I went to the high school, graduated, and went to San Diego State University. I have 3 sons, young adult sons, the youngest of which just graduated from Coronado High School in 2021. I own a small business in Coronado, Island Yoga Coronado, and like all small business owners, I do everything there is to do: payroll, taxes, federal and state forms, lease negotiations. I take care of all of my teachers and my students. I do value my teachers very highly. They are some of the highest paid teachers in in San Diego for yoga teachers. And also they are all employees and not independent contractors, which also is a value add. My business survived COVID, and during that I learned how to write grants, unemployment forms, and lease negotiations. We, much like the Coronado schools, we moved to online classes and to outdoor classes. I have volunteer taught yoga at the Barrio Logan Court School, which is for kids getting out of juvenile hall that can't return to their home schools. I've also taught yoga in juvenile hall in Kearney Mesa. I have been a volunteer. I've done, like many parents, gardening, room parent, PTO, ISF, Islander Sports Foundation. I was the CHS football board president. I've been working with the football team for 6 years. I was the president for 4 of the years, where we were working with the student athletes, the parents, our amazing athletic director, the coaches, the community, and running a budget of $25,000. I am now in Coronado Rotary, working on the End Polio Now, and Finally, and maybe most importantly, I've got the energy, the enthusiasm, and the excitement, the courage to bring a fresh point of view and to build on the great things our schools have done and to address the challenges that we have also. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Youngblood.
Good afternoon. My name is Scott Youngblood. I'm a physician and an orthopedic surgeon, and I just recently retired from the United States Navy after 25 years of active duty service. So during that time, I rose to the rank of a captain, and I also served for 7 years as the chairman of the Department of Orthopedic Surgery up at Balboa Navy Hospital. So that was a great leadership experience among many others because it's a very large organization, 120 employees, $20 billion budget, and 20 very individual orthopedic surgeons who it's a challenge to try to keep them pulling in the right direction, in the same direction. So that has, and it's also important because there's a robust academic program there with the residency program teaching young physicians to become orthopedic surgeons. And I was very proud to receive the 2018 faculty award for the best teaching faculty from the residents. So I am a big proponent of education, and I have a unique experience for that. In terms of volunteer organization or volunteer work, I've been the assistant scoutmaster at the local Boy Scout Troop 801 for the last many years, teaching and mentoring young men to become productive members of society. In terms of the laws that govern education in California, I'm not an attorney, but I have worked in a large organization learning the complex rules of the bureaucracy. And if you want to accomplish something in that, you have to reach across the aisle and deal with people that maybe you don't see eye to eye with, and that's important if you're able to work toward the same goal. In that case, it was patient care. And in this case, it's making schools better for our kids. So thank you.
Candidate Palacio Peters.
Thank you. Hi, my name is Alexia Palacios Peters. Thank you all for having me here today. As stated in the question, school boards have a diverse portfolio of responsibilities and multiple constituencies to serve. As a school board candidate, I bring diverse viewpoints and qualifications to this position. First, I'm a parent of 3 students in Coronado. I have a student at Coronado High School, I have a student at Coronado Middle School, and I have a student at Village Elementary School. And let me tell you, it's a lot of emails that come out. Secondly, I'm a military spouse. Coronado Unified School District has a 40% military population, and they receive over $6 million currently in DODEA grants, which accounts for approximately 14% of the district's total budget. We need somebody with a military perspective to be on this school board in order.
They're having a feedback
Oh,
issue. Just hold
which
them up
way?
just a little bit farther. away.
Further away? Okay. No one ever call me quiet. I'm also a former teacher. I received my undergraduate education with an elementary degree with a specialization in early childhood education. And then I became an attorney because teaching was too hard, apparently. I received my law degree with a specialization in child, family, and elder law, and then obtained my master's in the law in international comparative law. As an attorney, I've worked with various state and national laws. I've worked in areas of family law, immigration law, and veterans law. I'm a barred attorney in California and Texas, and I was also a previous barred in Virginia. I'm also a member of the bar of the Supreme Court of the United States. I am familiar with laws in these various jurisdictions, and in regards to the CUSD policies, I've attended or watched the school board meetings for the past several years. I've familiarized myself with the state laws and board policies and the hierarchy between them. I've served in various volunteer positions throughout the community, which for time's sake are listed on my website, so you can go check those out. And I look forward to earning your vote this evening. Thank you.
And Alexia was a college tennis player too.
No.
So she knows about the athletics.
Candidate Sandy.
I'm a Maliki or Mal Sandy, weird name, but just a regular guy. Originally from Los Altos, California, up in the Bay Area. Came to Coronado with the Navy in 1992. My wife and I bought our first home back in 1994, back when regular people could afford a home here. Some of you may remember that. We've lived here on and off for the past 30 years. We also did stints. We left here, went to Japan, Rhode Island, Virginia, Florida, Tennessee. And so we saw the educational systems there. So we have something to compare Coronado to. And we have 2 sons who graduated from Coronado High School, and we have 2 sons who are currently in the Coronado schools. One of them is an IEP, the Individualized Education Program. So he's one of the approximately 10 students who actually go to nonprofit, non-public schools off the island. And he was just in here borrowing my library cards. I'm a little bit worried about what's going on right now. I have a lot of experience leading organizations. I was a commanding officer of a helicopter squadron on board the USS Enterprise, affectionately known as the Mobile Chernobyl, because it had 8 reactors instead of the normal 2. I've managed 3 programs at the Naval Information Warfare Center across the bay there. And I was also the chief of staff to one of the admirals. I did a tour at the Navy's Bureau of Personnel, where I was what we call a detailer, where I managed the careers and assignments of approximately 600 Navy helicopter pilots. Following the Navy, I did 30 years of active duty, and then I defense contractor, and where I managed a team of 30 people doing submarine communications. So I have a lot of experience with budgets, personnel management, continuous process improvement. In the civilian job, we had a lot of turnover of personnel, so very familiar with California and national hiring laws. So I've only got 15 seconds. Highest DoD qualification, program management, and civilian program management, professional qualifications, Lean Six Sigma, Green Belt trained, community involvement, Little League teams, managed 3 of them, managed basketball and soccer teams in Rhode Island, Virginia, and became involved with the governing board just over a year ago, and I'm getting the boot here. One last thing. I'm self-funded. I have no campaign manager, no treasurer. I am only open to the teachers and the students of Coronado. So thank you.
Thank you, candidates, for that first round. Maintain remainers. I'll use my discretion as moderator to wait for follow-up, because I think it'd be better to get engaged in the next question. Before we do that, a couple of points for the audience. If you have questions at any point, put up your hands. You can get a card that can give it to our collector. Second, we will be taking a break about 3:20. You guys can keep on going, but at 3:20, I'll be out of here. And third, the college professor you can't resist. There will be a quiz when this is all done. I'm going to have City Council Member Tanaka write it. His test is tough. All right, let us go to the second question. What are the top 3 most pressing issues you see as facing the Coronado Unified School District? How would you work with the rest of the board, CUSD administration and staff, parents, and the broader community to address these issues within the parameter of current state law and education code? And we will start with candidate Kavanaugh.
I would ask you to repeat that long question.
What are the top 3 issues facing the Coronado Unified School District?
Okay.
And how would you work with board, parents, community, students to address these issues within the parameter of the state law and education code?
Great, thank you so much. I think one of the issues that is of importance is any learning loss that's happened because of the pandemic. What are we going to do to address it? First of all, identify it and make reasonable efforts to try to make up that learning. Another issue that's kind of related to that is we have a really mobile population. We have a high number of military students here, and they move here from all over, as you've heard. And a lot of times they come with learning gaps. So how are we going to address those to make sure that those gaps that they have in moving here or when they move away to another place, that we address those and take care of that. The third issue I think is really important. Again, goes back to academic excellence. When students take the CASP test, the state tests, students are ranked on a scale of 1 to 4. 4 means they exceed the standards. 3 means they meet the standards. 2 means they nearly meet the standards. They're almost there. And 1, they don't meet the standards. I really think that we need to look at and focus on those students that are in that 2 category. They nearly meet those standards, and work with those teachers to come up either with programs or ways to boost those students so that they are meeting those standards. Again, as a board member, we're concerned with oversight and policy making. So I expect teachers and administrators to work together to come up with possible issues to address those, bring that to the board and make sure that that's part of long-range planning and part of our LCAP goals.
Candidate Major.
Thank you. I think I agree academics is probably the top issue for me. And the test scores in 2021, the CASP test scores in science, only 54% of the kids met or exceeded grade level. Math, it was only 62%. English, it was only 77%. And our high school ranks 15th in the San Diego metro area high schools. So I think we have a lot of room to grow, and we have to protect core instructional minutes. And that's a big part of making sure that kids are on task during those core minutes. And I think the next area that we need to address is accountability. And we have to have parent involvement. Parents matter. And so I think that the school board needs to hold the administration accountable for those test scores. And the ones that I quoted to you were similar pre-pandemic. So then I think local control is really important too, and emphasizing that one size fits all doesn't work in small communities. So I think we need to reassert more local control. So thank you.
And that takes us to candidate Anderson Cruz.
Since COVID, there has been a nationwide gap in achievement, especially in language arts, math, and science. At CUSD, the students have been closing that gap in language arts, but we still have work to do in math and science. In response to the board's direction, the superintendent included a K-12 reading achievement goal in a long-range plan to implement instructional strategies that will provide students with a strong foundation in literacy so they'll be better prepared for upper grade success. If students are behind in reading and language arts in third grade, it's a difficult catch-up, so we're focused on that. The recent math course indicate that there is still work to be done, and that was echoed also in the science course. Post-COVID, there's been a district-wide focus on math and science intervention strategies, age-appropriate instruction, research-based professional development that hones best practices. Our dedicated teachers have been and are continuing to work very hard to close the achievement gap using these strategies. As a trustee, my focus is to be it continues to be on student achievement with the goal of closing that gap. This includes supporting research-based instruction and best practices and providing students with appropriate instructional scaffolds and reviewing academic outcomes using appropriate summative and formative assessment. The board has been fully supportive of the career pathways. Currently, there are 9 CHS pathways and 8 Coronado School of the Arts pathways. The 9 career technical ed pathways provide students with a sequence of courses that bridge students' interests with their careers. The CTE pathways include art, media, entertainment, health, medical science, information and communication technology, building, construction, trades, woodworking, engineering, and architecture. The COSA pathways provide a variety of courses and instruction specific to the arts. Currently, because of dual language instruction, students can get an AA degree and a high school diploma should they enroll in that program. Thank you.
Thank you very much, candidate Iverson.
Look, I think for me, it's pretty simple. It's about fiscal responsibility. I think somebody else mentioned accountability. I guess I'll put that under the local control bucket. And then finally, it's really about making sure that the academic programs that we do have are implemented to their fullest. So what I'll say is, for me as a parent of 2 kids now at the Coronado High School, I think the 4x4 program has been a failure. I don't think we've implemented it well. And I think we've, for the students that are achieving well in our schools, we've let them down substantially. We've left them on their own when it comes to AP tests, especially if you're a kid that's going into taking AP classes in the fall. There's absolutely no support from the school to take your AP test in May. You're basically left on your own to figure out how to do that. I think that's just wrong, frankly. As someone who comes from a country where we don't have standardized testing, I think the fact that we are constantly teaching to a test is a huge part of our problem, because we try to shoehorn people into this bucket where everybody has to fit, and I just don't believe that to be the way. And so, I don't know what ability I have to impact that, because there are standards, right? And I understand that, but I for one think that that's a broken problem, a big problem. And then, as I said, I think we have to be more, as a school board, exercise as much local control as we can in the decisions that do get made. Ultimately, as someone who's spent the better part of 25 years in the corporate world, being responsible to corporate boards and making financial decisions, I think this is what the school board can do in the way we decide how to spend the funds, and either incentivize our educators to do more for our kids, or other creative solutions that we can look at. I think there are some opportunities out there. So for me, it's really about local control, execution of the programs that we have as we go forward.
Like many of the other candidates, I'm very concerned about the learning loss that happened during the pandemic. Our teachers, our students, and our parents worked hard to try and keep our kids educated and up to standards, but it was just physically impossible to happen. I watched my own child struggle trying to learn what he would have learned his senior year typically, and it just didn't happen. It was no one's fault, but we have to figure out how we're going to address this learning loss. In math, our math scores are at the bottom 25% of all of San Diego County. That's just crazy. We need to find the reason for that. One of the reasons is we used to have a learning specialist in math at our elementary schools. It was funded by a grant. That grant ran out. And so for the past 2 years, we have not had a math learning specialist. We need to figure out how to budget to bring that specialist back to help our kids. Another thing that I'd like to bring up that no one else has is the security of our campuses. As we all know, with Uvalde and Sandy Hook, bad things can happen on campuses. And as a mom that's walked through all 3 of those campuses, I know there's a lot of access to the campuses that maybe shouldn't be there. We need to work. And I know that this has been under consideration with the fire and the police chief. But we need to come up with a plan. We need to figure out how to harden our schools. As much as it breaks my heart, we need to figure out how to be able to close our doors and windows, which means air conditioning those classes. Our kids are choosing between sitting in unair-conditioned 90-degree classes, sweating while our teachers try to engage and teach them. All of this comes down to the budget, and the budget comes down to what we can do for our kids.
Thank you. So in terms of the challenges that we face, I think academic learning loss and straying away from academic excellence has been an issue over the past few years. Some of that, of course, is due to the pandemic and the learning loss associated with that. Specifically with that, the things that we can do to address that would be looking at high intensity tutoring, trying to identify those students who have had issues or who have fallen behind, and trying to bring them back up to speed. I think also in terms of academics in general is focusing on that with a laser-like focus as a school board, making sure that everyone understands that academic excellence and making sure that every student has the best opportunity to make themselves the best student that they can be. That is the #1 goal of any school district. And in terms of academic excellence, the #1 way, or one of the ways you would get there, is to make sure that you retain, seek out, and hire the best teachers possible. The next issue would be transparency. I think that the board and the district have had some issues with transparency in terms of what the parents and community understand is being taught in the schools. And I think the best example would be the No Place for Hate curriculum that was instituted. There were a lot of things that were very politically charged in there that it took a while for the parents to figure out, and really before there was a public outcry and it was dropped. And unfortunately, that's very distracting from the academics. And the final thing is parent outreach. I think a lot of the parents have become frustrated in the district. Many have actually pulled their kids out of school, especially during the pandemic. Hopefully some of that's coming back right now, but we need to reach out to parents and really involve them to the maximum extent possible and make sure that they are, and they feel like that they are the number one stakeholder in their child's education.
Thank you. I think one of the big issues facing the district is the mental health of our students and our teachers. We can't get to achieving and addressing the learning gaps if our students and our teachers aren't in the right space frame of mind. They've spent the last couple of years pivoting through the pandemic, and we know that depression and the isolation has affected them. And we can spend 8 hours a day focused on academics, but they're not going to retain anything if they're worried about their anxiety or their depression or the bullying in the school. I think that's one of the first things we need to address. We do have Safe Harbor, a local program that works with the school district in order to help address that. We have the Triton time, and we have other resources in elementary and the high school in order to give students the opportunity to work through the mental health challenges that they may be facing. Secondary to that is then comes the learning gaps. We know there was learning gaps due to COVID. Any of us who tried to keep our children on a Zoom class know that we lost some things. And as a parent, I feel responsible partly for that. They were in my house. We can't expect the schools to do everything. And so I think with that, we can expand out from the schools. We obviously have parents who want to be involved. We're all here. We've got 11 people running for 4 seats. Parents want to be involved. That's what we keep hearing. So let's take those parents with all their expertise, former military, doctors, lawyers, businessmen, and let's have them tutor our students. We have the opportunity to bring them in as volunteers and help with reading. We've had those opportunities in kindergarten classrooms with Walk to Read. Let's put that in our other classrooms as well. And last, we've come back down to trust, transparency, and civility. And that goes both ways. The school board needs to have trust with the community and vice versa. We need to get back to trusting each other on the school board, trusting our leaders, trusting our teachers, and trusting our parents. Thank you.
It's hard to follow that. It's pretty darn good. My 3 issues are first, partisan politics and the misinterpretation of local control. There are rules that California mandates that we have to comply with, such as gender pronoun training. You have to do that. Menstrual products in a men's restroom, mask mandates from the previous year. To fight those on the cisteronic canards is just distracts from learning. The next issue I have is hot classrooms. I don't know how these kids sit in these classrooms with the heat and the humidity and learn in that environment. We have great teachers. We have great facilities, but we don't have the air conditioning so that these kids can focus on what they're trying to learn. Another one, and this comes from my 13-year-old, and he always talks about this, is the school shooting. I think Ms. Anderson brought that up. He asked me a lot about that. He asked me a lot about guns and how many kids could you shoot with this gun? So that is very concerning. I know the school district is doing a lot working with the police department and coming up with procedures, but that is something I think we need to continue to work on. I will say I'm very happy with the 4x4 schedule. I know it was tough to implement it during COVID, but we're one of 3 schools districts in San Diego, one of 3 schools in say high schools that do it. Rancho Bernardo, there's another one where the superintendent came from, I can't remember it. But RB is really, really happy with it. And I think it's an amazing opportunity for our kids to do more classes if they want to.
Yeah, candidate Busher.
Okay. Can you hear me? Hi. My focus is the parents and the students. The parents are the ones that know what's best for their children. And although I'm not a parent, I'm not even married, but I am concerned. And I want to tell you how I approach this. Parents come first. And so I don't know what all needs to be done, but you're going to tell me, you're going to help me to do that, do my job as a liaison between the school and the parents and the family. So I'm going to just listen to you. And one of the things that was really involving the students was the in-person learning. That was a concern of the parents that I noticed. Also, we could have some tutoring that would support that. I want to be a part of the solution and not the problem. So accountability is another issue. The school board needs to listen to each and every one of you. The public needs to be able to voice their opinion, and I am here to listen. I'm not here for my own agenda. I'm only here to serve you. I want to be your voice. I want to hear from you. And although I'm an unknown up here, I am very, I'm a proactive person. I'm a doer. I'm not a talker, really. I like to get the job done. And my thing is participating in what you need me to do, and I'll do that. So, and I think just as the nurses and the doctors and businesses have Yelp, I think the school board needs to have a, how are we doing? You know, like a rating score. So you can tell us how we are. And that's my spiel.
Thank you very much. We're going to do a 30-second response. We've covered a variety of different things here. Perhaps you want to follow up with that 4x4 air conditioning to safety, security, pandemic. And we'll begin with candidate Kavanaugh, 30 seconds.
Thank you. I just want to emphasize that we have 4 campuses. Poor little Silver Strand School down there kind of gets forgotten sometimes. So we do have 4 campuses in our school district. I think we have to be really careful whenever we're comparing our school district performance to other school districts. It's not the same. A unified school district has schools that are K through high school. Some school districts only have high school. Only have high schools in their district. So we need to be really careful when we're comparing one of our schools to school districts. I do agree mental health is another huge issue that we need to address with our students. But then again, as a school board, our job is oversight. It is not coming up with programs and solutions to things like that. That's the administration and the teacher's role. We're here to support them.
Thank you. Candidate Beecher.
Thank you. I just wanted to add that when we protect the core instructional minutes for the core classes, there is a direct correlation between how those kids do when it's on task, and we're very intentional about that. And I think we need to stick with that. The other thing is I think parents need to be able to come to town hall meetings, and the district needs to hear them, listen to them, and hear what they have to say, because parents know their kids.
I want to chat about the 4x4 program. Before I made up my mind about how effective this would be and what it would offer our students, I visited a number of schools, observed hundreds of students, talked to administrators, and there's always an implementation dip. And I agree that it might have been rolled out better, but the students I've talked to and the parents I've engaged with really appreciate the availability of a high school diploma and an AA degree.
So, for me, look, I think we implemented a new program, the 4x4, specifically coming out of COVID. Every single person, maybe except me on this panel, has talked about learning loss. Yet we took all of our students off Zoom and we rolled them into something that we had never done before. And then we gave them no support when we did it. And to me, that's the perfect example of how the school board failed our kids. Okay. All of them collectively. That's truly how I feel. And one of my primary motivators to get into this race. No one here has talked about putting the kids first. So I promise that if I get on the school board, my single focus will be putting the kids first. That's what we all need to do collectively on this board. And I don't think they did that.
I'd like to build on something that Mr. Iverson and candidate, then Mal also talked about, is putting the kids absolutely first. I'm a nonpartisan candidate. As you look at these candidates, many of the candidates are accepting money from political parties. I am not. I'm nonpartisan. I have no political party agenda. And that's where I start and where I end is what's best for the kids, what's best for our schools.
So with regards to the 4x4, there's the academic issue of what kind of block curriculum, if that's better than the traditional schooling. But really, the big problem is that in the manner in which that the school board adopted it, it was very poorly put out. It was passed at the height of the school lockdowns. And then even after a very contentious meeting with all of the almost the near unanimous opposition from the high school teachers and most of the parents, it was passed regardless.
Thank you. There are obviously several issues facing our district. We all have different ideas as to what is a priority, because that was the question, is the top three, but there's more than three. And as a school board candidate, 4 of us are going to be working together along with Whitney. And so my goal is for us together to figure out what are the top priorities and how can we address it with the administration in order to continue moving our district forward. And I look forward to finding solutions to these issues. Thank you.
Sandy.
So Alexia mentioned treating mental health challenges, which I think is absolutely huge these days, especially with social media and stuff that I did not have to experience as a kid. So that's something that the school board will have to look closely at.
One thing I didn't mention was, I believe everyone should have a choice, whatever agenda you support. This gives an opt-out decision for something that you would rather not participate in. I think always choice should be on the platform for the parents to be able to decide what's best for their children. As for the 4x4 or the classic traditional style, maybe that's something the parents would like to address themselves. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, we will be doing a daily double, but we will be doing some lightning rounds. I see 2 good ones we can do on this exchange. First, air conditioning in the classrooms. How many of you, raise your hand if you would support moving forward in a reasonable time frame with air conditioning in the classrooms? Anybody would oppose? Feel free to oppose or abstain. The 4x4, I'm going to give you 3 choices. Do you support the 4x4 as currently structured? Would you support the 4x4 modification, or would you prefer a return to the more traditional schedule? Support the 4x4 as currently structured. Support the 4x4 with modification. Yeah, return to the traditional schedule. Very good. You have points of the difference to look at in policy. That takes us to our third question. Hey, we're almost an hour in, people. We only got 3.5, 4 hours to go. And that's how it works. Whoever's still standing at the end is survivor. Question number 3. What do you see would be your role in serving on the school board and fostering improvement, trust, and building consensus between all CUSD stakeholders to achieve effective policies and serving its students? You were all talking about issues of trust. What would you see your role in being in rebuilding that? And we start with candidate Nation.
Yes, I think accountability is huge in this area. And I do believe that the school district has lost trust. And we need to hold the administration accountable for the education of our children. And that is through the superintendent. So we do need to keep that person accountable for the results of the school testing. Now I'm trying to, I had something else here. Let's see. I think listening to the community is hugely important, and that's something I would love to be a part of. Getting feedback directly from parents and grandparents, because people come to me quite a bit and tell me when they don't feel heard. And that's an important part in getting more trust. So.
move over excuse me, I got distracted for a moment, to candidate Anderson Cruz. I apologize.
School board members are elected individually, but they function as a group. There are 5 school board members. They're 20% of the group. No one person can do anything without getting along with the other people on the school board. So building consensus is essential. That does not mean you always have to agree with each other, but it does mean you need to be civil, professional, calm, and willing to listen to opposing points of view. Opposition is not World War III. It's an opportunity to learn and to grow. Just because someone disagrees with you does not make them the enemy. It makes them someone who's offering a different perspective. And school board members need to maintain that. In the last couple of years, we've had some very interesting and energetic board meetings. You may have seen them. It is my MO to stay calm, collected, and measured. And throughout the unprecedented meetings, I've not been deterred or derailed. It's been and will continue to be my modus operandi to stay centered and to participate calmly within the bounds of civil discourse and to focus on what is doing best for children. It has been said that we haven't articulated kids are number one. I thought that was intuitively obvious, but I will state it. What's good for children is my top priority. I am nonpartisan. I don't accept money. I don't accept endorsements. I accept trying to do my very best for what is best for children. And after 40 years in education, I know a couple of things. I know I was involved in teacher training, so I've worked from every side of the desk as a teacher, as a mother of a elementary, middle school, and high school graduate, the grandmother of a middle schooler, and someone who moved here in 1987 when houses were affordable. I have experience from a parental perspective and from a professional educator perspective. Thank you.
I think that, can be summed up in one word. I think what's important is about communication, right? So if we want to reestablish trust and create accountability for the school board and the school leadership, then we got to communicate. And I, for one, found that over the last 2 years, sure, we can all go to the school board. We can all watch the school board meetings. I've done that, right? And I understand the rules that govern how those school board meetings works, but I find that there's a huge gap in communication between the community and the school board. People show up, it's more or less contentious. They say things, but there's not a dialogue that actually occurs. And I, for one, think we need to have a dialogue between the parents and the school leadership, in this case being the superintendent. And he needs to be accountable to the community, and accountability starts with communication, right? So I work in sales for 20 years. And how do I motivate my salespeople? It's all about communication. You got to tell them what they're doing well, and you got to take feedback. So I think the school board needs to, and the school leadership particularly needs to do exactly the same thing. And I really don't think that occurs today. So, look, a lot of people said they're nonpartisan. I'll just say I'm the same. I spent $500 on my street signs. That's about it. Look, hopefully this isn't about money. Okay. This is, again, about parents. And for all those that are parents up here, I applaud you for taking the time and the desire to volunteer for the community, because that's really what's needed. But I really strongly believe that if you do not have kids in the school district, you shouldn't be sitting up here. I'm sorry. That's what I feel. And I promise this group that in 4 years, when my last kid graduates high school and my wife and I go out for a really expensive dinner, because finally we'll have our house to ourselves, then, I won't run for school board again. Because if I don't have schools in the school district or kids in the school district, I shouldn't be making the decisions.
So I think what we're talking about is understanding each other, excuse me, and having different points of view on the school board is exactly what we want. I look forward to working with people with different points of view. They're going to think about things that I haven't thought about. They're going to have a different perspective. And that can only make our school board and our schools and communities more strong, more vibrant. I do think we've lost some trust with our stakeholders. as Mr. Iverson said, we do have, you can come to all of the school board meetings. They are live streamed, and you can see the back films of them on the website. What I think is missing, and has been missing with some previous school board members, is explaining why someone votes how they vote. So I can vote yes on something or no on something, but unless I give my background and I explain why, it doesn't really mean a lot, and it just feels a little bit arbitrary. One of the things I'd like to do as well, and I'm going to take the cue from some of the other school board members, is have office hours where the parents can come to me and speak to me, and we can have a conversation. As we all know, the Brown Act is a little bit difficult with the different school board members working with each other. And the last thing I'd like to say really quickly is that although it is very important to have kids in the school district, there is a wisdom and a knowledge by being able to look back on a whole school career. I've had 3 sons go from K through 12 and off into college. My youngest just graduated 2 years ago. And though I don't have one in the school system, I think that gives me a unique perspective. And I don't get caught down in what's going on in 3rd grade right now. And I think that can be a real strength.
So I still have 2 kids in the school, so hopefully I'm good for this one. But in terms of reestablishing trust, I think it's absolutely important that the school administration and the school board is very open and forthright and transparent with what they're doing, what they're going to do. If there is a program or new curriculum that they're going to adopt, it needs to be fully vetted. It needs to be advertised in advance, and there needs to be parental involvement in the selection and vetting of that program. You need to listen to dissenting opinions. I think that's very important. Often a dissenting opinion, looking at it from a different direction, is going to improve the final product. That's very important. You need to be responsive to the community, listening to all the stakeholders in the community, especially the parents, and making sure that you are being an appropriate fiduciary and representative of the community. In terms of partisanship and all that, all of this is nonpartisan. The school board is nonpartisan. And even if you disagree with someone on something else, politics really should not enter the school board or the school system. And that is, in terms of, you asked about consensus. How do we really reach a consensus about our children in our school district? Well, the first thing to do is to keep politics out of schools. And that includes the school district. There's lots, if you want to really ruin public education in this community and in the United States, then you will try to make it political. And we need to stop doing that, and we need to protect our kids and let our kids be kids and get back to just focusing on academics. And that's going to be my focus. Thank you.
Thank you. I agree with most of the things people have said up here. They've taken all the good responses. In order to build back trust and transparency, listening to the students, listening to the parents, and listening to the other school board members that you're serving with. Because again, diversity of viewpoints coming together will help you really think beyond what you yourself think you know already. Working together in a civil, professional, and calm manner, that's a huge piece of this, is being able to collaborate, because again, you are only 1/5 of the team. And then explaining your positions and your votes, as Stephanie said, you have to be able to explain why you voted yes, why you voted no. So that way the community understands that you considered what people were telling you. You can contact the school board member, there's emails, they're showing up and speaking at the school board meeting. So there are opportunities to be heard, but it's making sure that people know that they were heard. And then the last piece, I think, in order to build back the trust with the community, is when an issue is settled and decided upon, it needs to be decided upon. We can't continue to relitigate things that have already happened. Right now, the 4x4, it's happened. It's been decided by a previous school board, and we need to wait to see where that goes. And by bringing it up again and again, we're relitigating something that right now is settled. It may change again. That may be something that the new board may take up, and I'm open to that. But when an issue is decided, my point is it needs to stay that way, so that way the community can continue moving forward and addressing all the other litany of issues that we've already identified that haven't been decided. Thank you.
Sandy?
So the question was my role in rebuilding trust. So I've got to show honesty, integrity, and transparency, which I believe I've always done. I'll say what I feel and believe at the school board meetings. I will not bow to any external influences. Again, I haven't taken any external money or endorsements, although I didn't get as good a deal on my yard sign as Mr. Iverson. I paid $600 for mine. So yeah. So again, I'll only answer to the students and the teachers, and I'll take the input from the parents. So.
Okay, so the truth is very important to me, and I have to be truthful to you. The reason why I'm here is because I'm here for the welfare and the health of the children. And I want to stress to every parent out there that you do have a choice. Just remember that. Any mandate that comes across to your lap, you have a choice. And I'm living proof of it. I'm a healthcare worker and I'm unvaxxed. Now, that may not be your choice, but before you criticize my decision, I want you to know that you can ask the pertinent questions. What is in the vaccine? Why do they put graphene oxide in the vaccine? Why would they be doing that? So I'm here to protect your children from anything that would be untoward to them, okay? So that's why I'm here, Mr. Iverson. I'm here for the welfare of the children. Otherwise, I would not be here. I'm standing up, I'm doing what's right, and I'm gonna listen to the parents, okay? That's all I've got to say.
Kavanaugh.
I feel I should tell you I have 3 grandchildren in schools. Does that count? Like I have some skin in the game here. I see school board as kind of the link, the connection between community and our schools. And, you know, listening to parents, listening to families, listening to the community, what's out there, what do they want from our school board? What do they expect? They want us, I think they demand that we engage in conversation and questioning each other, not because I may not disagree with you, but the best decision, the best outcome is going to happen because lots and lots of questions are asked and there's lots of input that's given. Sometimes we think that the school board is at the top, but I feel that the students are at the top. They should be our focus. Teachers support the students, administrators support the teachers, school board supports everything above them and connects it all together with the community. So it is important to listen to students and to families and to the community and to ask those hard questions and engage in discussion and work together to come for the best outcome.
Thank you very much. All right, rather than do a 30-second follow-up on that, because we're going to take a break in about 10, 15 minutes, I'd love to get to other questions. If I see any desire for a 30-second follow-up, we can run through everybody. Yeah, I don't see. Let's move to one. I wanted to get an audience question in before we take our break. You have already mentioned, several of you have a specific the important role military families and students play in our district. This question asks from the audience, what specific needs do you think are most important for military students? What policies would you want in place to support these needs for caveat, and how would this impact the budget to achieve this? So we begin with candidate Anderson Cruz. And this will be, since we're trying to get out the break, a 1-minute question.
Okay, so I'll begin with my dad was stationed here at NAS. And when I was 6 or 7 years old, I was fishing off the pier and the pole dragged me towards the ocean because the fish was a crab and it was very big and tried to drag me into the ocean. That being said, as a military child, I loved the travel. I loved the 4 different kindergartens and the 4 different middle schools and high schools. My sister did not. So I think one of the things we do very well in Coronado is to welcome new students at the elementary school, at the middle school, and the high school. We also have MFLACs, which are military counselors specifically for our military students. And our district has a great deal of respect, not our district, our community has a great deal of respect and appreciation for our military heroes who put their life on the line to protect us and our children. And I kind of resent that I'm a grandma with a kid in school and that doesn't qualify me to be on the school. But, you know, I'm old. I did manage to get a child K through 12 through here and then to a university up in Los Angeles. So, okay, they're cutting me off. To be continued.
Candidate Iverson.
I clearly upset a few folks on the board by telling them that they couldn't, serve on the board if they didn't have kids in there. Sorry, that's just where I'm at. But at any rate, I think for me, I actually grew up as sort of a military kid, right? So my dad was a foreign service officer for the Danish State Department. So I moved all over the world as a kid, and I had the opportunity to live that lifestyle, if you will. Many of my friends that I grew up with were U.S. military, their parents were U.S. military. And so I have a very unique appreciation for what those kids actually feel when they arrive at a new school, because I lived it myself. And so I think it leaves you feeling very homeless in a really weird way as a kid. You don't have roots. And so I think, having programs that pulls them in and allows them to feel part of the community immediately is really important. And I, for one, certainly think that, as someone who lived it, I have a unique perspective when it comes to those type of programs that we need to implement to support those kids.
Thank you. So our military families are, of course, integral to all of Coronado, to our society that we live here. And taking care of their kids is one of our top priorities. We need to have programs that do an intake. What kind of math have they been taught? How have they been taught to read? Some kind of an intake program that evaluates the kids and sees, do they need some help in one area but not the other? We need to have the tutors. We also need social integration, which I think our schools do a great job of having programs that do that. The other thing that hasn't been mentioned yet is when kids that are in military are in our school and are not brand new, but do have a parent deployed. What do we do to support those kids and the whole family during those situations?
So as a military parent and member of the military for 11 of the past 12 years while here in the district, I thought the schools actually did a really good job of outreach to the military programs, families, and our kids. With regards to the problems that we face, I would say the biggest problem would probably be for the high school students that are coming here would be the 4x4 curriculum. So one of the problems with that, with it is, in order to really make it work, you have to offer every subject for every semester, right? Every course needs to be offered. And the problem is we're not able to do that because of the small size of our high school relative to those schools where it does work. So it's always a problem coming from elsewhere and trying to make your curriculum or your academic transcript match up with the courses that you're going to take. And now it's even harder.
I think one of the specific needs is the voice of the military on the board. And I'm thankful that there's 3 of us who are military families up here running for office. Because when you look at something such as the 4x4, did anyone stand up and say, how is this going to affect our military students coming through? Yeah. Is this going to affect when they come in the middle of the year? And so that is something that's one example, but for decisions that are going to continue to come, is there a voice saying, how is this going to affect our military students? There are some great programs in the elementary school with regards to the MFLACs and the Anchored for Life that they do, but I think there is some more that can be done in the high school level. You look at student government and ASB, which is a class in order to be part of the ASB government. How are the military children supposed to fit in when they're coming in for their senior year and they need to take these core academic classes, but they're not able to serve in their student government and have a voice in their own school because they're not able to be elected because it's all by who you know and they don't know anybody. So I think those are the issues that we need to look at. Thank you.
Candidate Sandy.
I really liked what Stephanie mentioned about an intake program for military kids. I have 4 kids, all 4 have moved to different districts. And an intake program that would test them for or offer them social skills. So if you have a very introverted kid who's in his 5th or 6th school, it can be very, very difficult. Academically, where do they stand academically so they can get into the right classes and not be overwhelmed? Mental health wise, to see how they're doing socially, and then figure out if a child has learning disabilities so they're not thrown into a class and suffer for a few years before you discover what's really going on. So all from experience.
I'm a Navy brat, so I understand about moving around. We need to be welcoming to the students and offer an integrational program, maybe. There are a lot of things we can do to make them feel welcome, and also maybe possibly offer a tutor program for them, something that will be more supportive of the child that's coming in and the family. So thank you. Thanks.
So as the only teacher in the school district, up here, we do like an intake program when students come in, whether they're military or not. Any new student is always evaluated to see where they are with their reading and their math. Prior school districts, the cumulative file is sent, so you can kind of see their past background and be able to help those students on day one with what they need. Students, whether they're military or not, need to be supported. They need to feel connected. They need to feel immediately on campus that there's someone that knows them and cares about them. We need to make sure that they feel valued for their unique experiences that they've had, the diversity that they bring. I know it's probably a lot harder at the high school level to get in and feel that connection. But I think that the programs that we have there try to make that effort to make sure that all students are involved.
Thank you. The feedback that I'm getting from parents is that if you go online and look at reviews of the school district through, for example, real estate kind of things where they talk about how are the schools for people planning to move here, there are negative reviews on our district from military parents who have been here and then they've moved to other areas of the country or around the world, and they just said their kids have had to have tutoring when they go, and when they leave this district they have to get caught up. So that's not good. So parents do matter, and I hope the district listens to us. The other thing that the reviews that I've heard from parents is that with the 4x4 program, the block schedule, the kids that move mid-year have a hard time fitting into the other districts around the country or the world because they're not on the same kind of schedule in their, the going out of the lessons. They're just off. It's different. So.
All right, thank you very much. We're at 3:23. Brian, what do you think? About a 10-minute break? So let's all try to be back here by 3:33 in place, and we'll continue the second half of the debate. I want to thank the audience and the candidates for your performance up till now.
I'm so sorry. I don't mean to feel like the time bully, but I was wondering what kind of music.
I'm going to give you a yardstick.
No.
Little things like that are important.
But everyone please return to your seats. I've got way soccer tickets at 6 o'clock, so let's get
You wish.
Anybody not seated in the next 10 seconds will stay to help clean up the room.
Yes.
I was gonna take the other end. We're related, I'm sure.
All right, everybody, we will resume. I'm gonna, as I introduce candidates, I just had a request sometimes to go back, keeping track because there's so many people. I'm going to use first and last names, which will take me longer, and I apologize if I trip over your names. I have to do that with my students. I've got 4 daughters. On a good day, I get their names right about half the time. But I will preserve the honorific candidate, and I'll explain why in my first remarks. So we can move to question number 4. Here's the preamble. School board members must often tackle complex, sensitive, and controversial issues for which full community consensus has not yet emerged, you think? Further, it is the legal requirement that elected school boards, California boards in California, must work to create policies for addressing such issues while abiding by law, educational code, and collective bargaining agreements. So within this context, and to help voters understand how you might make decisions on such issues, please explain how you would have dealt with the mask and vaccination mandates put in place over the past 2 years in Coronado Unified, while honoring Coronado Unified's legal commitments to keep students, staff, administrators, parents, and residents safe. And we begin with candidate Michael Iverson. 2 minutes.
Thank you. So look, obviously, this is a loaded question, to put it mildly. My philosophy on this is pretty simple. I work in the medical industry. I have worked in the medical industry for the better part of 20 years. So while I'm not a physician, I do get to hobnob with them all day long. I think we all have to manage our own risk profile. Okay. The reality is this is one of, probably more pandemics, right? It's not going to be the last one. It's probably the first one that we've had in our lifetime. And the world was kind of feeling their way through it, trying to figure out what to do. I don't think that it was, I think that we as a school district sent our kids home while there were other parts of the country that didn't. There were other countries around the world that didn't. And initially it was naturally out of an abundance of caution. But as we went along, it was, I think, more based out of fear as opposed to out of reality. I've been triple vaccinated. I've spent in the hospitals all day long for my job. But I think people have to manage their risk profiles. And by what I mean by saying that is, if you want your child to wear a mask, they should be able to do so, no problem. If you want your child not to wear a mask, they should be able to do so, no problem. I really think it needs to be up to the individual child, parent, family to make the decision about what's right for their child. We shouldn't have it forced on us one way or the other. And I think it just got out of control. You know, if you were wearing a mask, that was bad. If you weren't wearing one, that was bad. And I just think that was broken. And frankly, we put our kids in the middle of it, right? And that to me is really our failure collectively as adults, is that we put it on our kids, and that's just not right.
Stephanie Anderson.
With the masks and the vaccine. So when I was football board president, we were still running football games. And I got emails from one side saying that I didn't care about the Coronado community because I was allowing football games to happen. I got other emails saying that because the kids were in masks, they couldn't breathe and that they didn't want to sit in the stands with masks. So what I really learned from that and from running my business during COVID is that people have very extreme views. What it comes down to is we must follow state and federal law. I agree that we started very conservatively because out of an abundance of caution, people were dying and it needed to stop. What I wonder is if we got stuck there for longer than was absolutely necessary. As I said, you must follow state and federal law, but if there was some room to bring it down, to move through, to look at the data, see what was going on and ease the restrictions, I would have done that.
Candidates, Youngblood.
Yes, so obviously this is a very controversial subject. And as a physician, I believe wholeheartedly in evidence-based medicine. When it comes to mask mandates, I just look at the evidence, and the World Health Organization in 2019 put out a compendium and recommendations should a pandemic arise. They looked at 200 studies, 13 randomized controlled trials, and 30 years of data. And they said there is no evidence to support the use of masks in preventing respiratory viruses, infection and spread. And so I can tell you that in March of 2020, unfortunately, the science did not change. I can tell you that, and the politics did. And so then we started and we did the masking, and the problem is the rest of the world, or a great deal of it, was not doing it, and their health outcomes were essentially equal. And then we had the Super Bowl of this year, and everybody and the rich and the famous were going around without masks, and our kids were still wearing masks in schools. And there are lots of harms that can come about from masks, to include psychiatric effects, loss of empathy, social isolation, depression, etc. So it's not without harm to do a mask mandate. I wholeheartedly agree with medical freedom and the ability to choose for yourself, your children, and your family on whether or not you're gonna take a vaccine or you're gonna take a mask or you wear a mask. It's one thing to say you can do it. It's another thing to say you have to do it. I believe in freedom and the ability to choose for yourself and for your family.
Candidate Alexia Palacio-Peters.
There are obviously competing interests in regards to the mask and the vaccination mandates. First, you have the state and federal laws that are coming down dictating what has to happen. Then you have the teachers and the teachers union and what they're willing to do, what conditions they're willing to work under, because if you don't have the teachers, then you can't have school. And then you have the students, that you have your primary stakeholder and what is best for the students. But you have to consider all three viewpoints in the triangle in order to make a decision as to whether or not to enforce mask and vaccination mandates. I think vaccination mandate is probably easier that's, we'll put that to the side, not something that is mandated to us. And I don't think that's something that this district needs to get involved in medical decisions. But with regards to the masking, that was something that had to be considered because of the teachers and the state and federal legislation. And so were I in that situation, I would have to look at all the legalities of it, make sure that we are looking at the liability to the district, because we don't want to spend funds on lawyers and litigation. We want to put that into our classrooms.
So I fully support the mask and vax mandates for the greater good. We did have a polio case recently in New York. There's a big anti-vax community, the Hasidic community up there. Polio still exists in Afghanistan and Pakistan. So these are real dangers. It's not hard to wear a mask. When I got to Japan in 1998, I was with Kitty Hawk, and I saw a lot of Japanese people walk around wearing those masks. I thought, what in the world's going on with them? And what they did is they wore them when they were sick. So they in respect to others, they would wear masks to help prevent others from getting sick. I don't know whether it worked or not, but I thought they had the greater good in mind. I think about that new Top Gun movie where they're called Orders Maverick. If you gotta do it, we do it. Like in the Navy, we were told we're gonna get the anthrax vaccine. I thought, oh, I don't want that, but I got the anthrax vaccine. Well, 3 of them before they shut the lab down, and then so that's why I have that 1,000-yard stare. But so anyway, so fully support mandates.
Okay, thank you. So what you may not know is that I have a license for nurse practitioner as well. I have a business degree in finance. So I have had some education. Now, I'm not a practicing nurse practitioner, but I can tell you something you don't know. You haven't had full disclosure as far as those vaccines are concerned. Do you know it's not even a vaccine? It is gene therapy. They're changing your DNA. So with that, they're not telling you the truth, okay? And that's what you need to know. It's not fully approved. It's not FDA approved, only under the Emergency Act or whatever. So it won't be fully FDA approved until next year, 2023. So that's why I say it should be a matter of choice. And I think everyone needs to have full disclosure, don't you, as far as gene therapy goes? I'm not trying to convince you one way or the other, but you have the right to know what's being put in your body. And I'm here to stand up for the children. If it's toxic, I don't want them to have adverse reactions to that, okay? And as far as mandates go, that's up to you. I'm not trying to tell you, oh my God, sorry. I get a little passionate about this subject. So I probably should stop.
Oh, that's okay. I don't know why it's doing that. It's because you're directly under the speaker.
It's time to stop.
Candidate Renee Kavanaugh.
Thank you. I'm not a physician. I don't think anyone on our school board at the time was a physician. I kind of have a hard time finding fault with the district and the decisions they made at the time, because they were forced into making a decision about something that they really weren't experts on. No one was really an expert on it at the time. I think they did the best that they could. I remember I wasn't at school the day that all of the kids went home with every single book and notebook they had, and more to come. And it was surreal. You didn't know what was going to happen. The kids didn't know what was going to happen. I think the teachers did an incredible job of coming together and working together to keep learning and instruction going as they could. I think parents did a heroic effort of keeping their kids' faces kind of guided toward the computer as we did Zoom classes and things. It wasn't the best option, but it was the option that we had. I think that if given that situation again, I would look toward the healthcare professionals and what is the County Department of Health telling us and recommending us to do, and looking for their guidance in making those decisions.
Candidate Jerry Beach.
Thank you. I just want to tell you our personal story with the issue of masking. Our daughter was in middle school and she was experiencing chronic headaches for the first time. She couldn't focus on school, on, direct learning. Reading was difficult. She almost fainted in PE because she was required to run with a mask on. So as parents, we were worried. And so we had her physician, we called him and he said, yeah, these are all signs that she is in distress and I'll write you an exemption letter. And so we got the letter sent in and it came back with a physician that the district hired because they seem to want almost 100%, compliance. And their doctor that I'm sure our tax dollars paid for, said, oh no, this doesn't count. It doesn't matter. And I do not grant the exemption. Now I have to say she was in 6th grade and she probably would have had a hard time being the only kid without a mask. But that was enough to pull her out. We felt like she's not going to be able to focus on school. That's why we're there. I think that I believe in medical freedom, that each person should have medical autonomy to put in their body what they decide. Just because someone is in a white lab coat does not mean that they can force someone to have a medication or a shot that they don't want. So that's where I stand on there. I believe in liberty. And I think fear is not a good motivator. So.
Candidate Helen Anderson Cruz.
I think the mask mandate is a prime example of local control and a desire for local control. The issue was that the state, the local, and the federal government had mandated this. Now, I believe that as a representative government, our elected officials, our locally elected officials have the qualifications and expertise to make those kinds of decisions. And I think that's where they need to be. That being said, I'm also a strong adherent to the rule of law and took an oath since I was actually here during this wonderful mask mandate. We took an oath to obey the laws. That doesn't mean that I agreed with every law. It just means I adhered to it. I oppose legal mandates, but I did through legal channels. I wrote letters to the people who were in charge and expressed my opinion. I did not want us to lose our liability insurance. I did not want to lose our funding. I did not want to have the school closed down and have all of our kids not be able to come back. And so that is what happened. It is possible to advocate for local control and be turned down, but it doesn't mean you have to give up. You need to write to the people who are responsible. I think recent events have shown that it's an act of futility to be angry at local agencies for stuff that happens in Sacramento. Write to Sacramento. I recently wrote a letter about a recent legal issue. So I encourage you to do that.
We're going to have 30-second follow-ups on this question. I would ask you to also focus your response looking at it from the prism of being a board member, not just a member of the community, but how would you address this within the confines of state law and obligations? And we'll go back with candidate Iverson.
So look, I guess I'll focus specifically on the mask mandate because that was the mandate, right? Well, vaccines were, by the nature of it, voluntary. People could get them or not. It's really up to you. But I think the mask mandates, as I understood it, were not mandates. You could choose. There were private schools in town that did not have mask mandates. So, I think we had an opportunity to make choices, not at the beginning necessarily, but I think, at times we had an opportunity as a school district to make a different choice, and we didn't. So I would have made a different choice.
Candidate Stephanie Anderson.
I'd like to build on what Alexia said, is that by not following state and federal law, we open ourselves up to liability and to lawyers. And that's very expensive, whether we win or lose. Also, a great point that was brought up was the teachers union. We've got teachers that have to teach there. They can be older people. The older people were more vulnerable in this situation. And we had to take into account not only the student needs, which are absolutely paramount, but also the needs of the teachers that must be in this class as well.
Thank you. Candidate Scott Youngblood.
So I said earlier that I wasn't an attorney. I'm a doctor, but I would say that I think it's very important to distinguish between a state law that has gone through the legislature and then signed into law by the governor, and then a public health order issued by a bureaucrat or a governor even. So those do not have the force of law. Now, yes, you would have to get all the attorneys involved and see what you could do, but I certainly wouldn't be a rubber stamp for something that I think is not evidence-based medicine. And I would at least explore the opportunities to try to make sure there's no mandates.
Candidate Alexia Felicios Peters.
I would just like to add, especially going after a doctor, that I would consider the science. That's obviously a big part of it. You have the legal part, but you also need to follow the science, which at that time was minimal. And now there has been more science that has come out directing what is ongoing with the pandemic. And also that there is the option to advocate through legal channels, as Trustee Anderson Cruz stated. And so even if I needed to vote to follow the mandate, if I didn't agree with it, I would go and advocate through legal channels in order to do what's best for our community.
Candidate Bill Sandy.
My belief is local control does not give us the right to overrule a mandate, and we open ourselves to losing funding when we do that. Somebody mentioned some of the teachers are older. Mr. LeMay, the physics teacher, my son was in his class, and a student decided to come in there maskless, so he had to take the class outside and hold the class outside. So we have to respect his health and risks of getting COVID and what would happen to him.
And then Nicole Boucher. Hopefully the mic will be nicer this time.
Oh, yeah. So can you hear me? According to the California School Board Association, quote, local boards of education are entrusted by their diverse communities to uphold the Constitution, protect public interests in schools, and ensure high quality education to each student. The Constitution, did you hear that? The law of the land. Anyone hear that? So each and every one of us has liberties, and with every mandate, they've been chipping away at that for a long time. It's time to stand up and to say, I have the choice. Parents have the choice. I'm here to help empower you to have that choice again. And that's all I've got to say.
Candidate Renee Kavanaugh.
Yeah, as a public school board member, I think that we have a legal responsibility to be in compliance with laws and mandates. That being said, I think our school district came up with some creative solutions to getting students back into the classroom as quickly as they could, as safely as they could.
Candidate Jerry Mitchell.
It's my understanding that the union, in order to go back to school a little bit earlier, that was their requirement, was that all the kids had to be masked. So I think it was more about that here. In terms of liability insurance, I've talked to board members from other school districts that did not follow this mandate, and they didn't have any problems with their liability insurance. As far as lawsuits are concerned, we are now being sued by that student that was mentioned. And so that's not really a good argument.
Candidate Helen Anderson Cruz.
Can I just answer this?
This is your follow-up. We want an extra 30 seconds.
Follow up. Last time I checked, laws were not a cafeteria where you got to choose which laws you're going to obey and which laws you weren't. So I am a God-fearing, law-abiding citizen. I will obey the laws. And you do have a choice. You have a choice to go through legal channels to make your voice heard. Make it heard where it's going to count. Don't just come to board meetings and be upset. Come and be upset. We're going to listen to you. But then do something that's going to make a change. At least something that's viable. I don't think it's a good example for our students for us to violate the laws. I think it is our duty to be good citizens and to be a good example for our children.
Thank you. All right, we have another question round. This will be a 2-minute response with if needed, a 30-second follow-up. The preamble: school districts are mandated by law to create a safe learning environment for all students. This legal mandate includes developing policies and programs to address issues of bullying, sexism, racism, homophobia, and other exclusionary practices, and to provide for practices and policies promoting equity and diversity across the school curricula and community. As a board member, how would you define a safe, diverse, and equitable school environment? Do you support the district's current efforts to provide such a safe, equitable learning environment? How would you work with the rest of the board to add or modify current practices? I'll repeat, how would you define a safe, diverse, and equitable school environment? Do you support the district's current efforts to provide such an environment? And how would you work with the rest of the board to add to or modify current practices? And we begin, I believe, with candidate Stephanie Anderson. 2 minutes. Oh, there's no right now.
Thank you. Sorry, I've been used to using that one. So when we're trying to create safe, equitable schools, what we're really trying to do is find situations where children can learn. And children who are under stress can't learn. So what we're doing by bringing in safe and equitable policies is we're building our community, because the schools are not only about building good students, they're about building good citizens. They're about the people that are going to live around you, the people that pay taxes, and the people that will be on school board eventually. I believe that our school has gone out of its way to find some great policies and great situations where children can feel heard. It's also very important that the parents join in with this situation to work with the school board, work with the teachers. It's a big mix of all of us working together to make sure these kids feel heard and understood and safe. One of the most difficult challenges, I think, is that hasn't been spoken yet is internet bullying and what we can do about that. Now, I don't have an answer to that. It's a very complex problem, but it is something that is strong and is getting stronger in the future, and something that we need to look at and policies that we could work on with that. Thank you.
Candidate Scott Youngblood.
So in terms of making the schools safe, obviously there's physical security that's been talked about. That's critically important. We should have air conditioned our schools a long time ago so we can keep the doors and gates closed and ensure the physical security. In terms of online bullying, obviously it's a problem. We need to come up with innovative ways to encourage and model good behavior online. And that honestly, that also needs to start at home. And we need to educate parents on what's happening with their children and their devices, and making sure that they know and can model good behavior and monitor behavior as appropriate for the age for that as well. And then, quite frankly, if there are people who are bullying or are doing stuff that is completely inappropriate, meaning students, then they need to be disciplined. That we just simply can't tolerate it, and we need to hold them accountable as appropriate, right? So there has to be consequences for their actions. In terms of equity or an equitable environment, I absolutely believe in equality. I think that unfortunately some of the politics that comes down from the Sacramento and the nation about equity is problematic, because it in essence will treat people differently, and that's a problem. I believe in Martin Luther King Jr., when we should judge people on the basis of their character and not on the color of their skin. And I think that unfortunately, when we start getting into social engineering programs, then we're starting to treat people differently based on factors other than merit and what they've done. So I absolutely believe it's important to try to create an environment where they can focus and excel in academics.
Candidate Alexia Palacio Peters.
I believe a safe learning environment is an environment in which each student feels safe from physical harm, from emotional harm, and are free to be who they are. And when they're able to do that, then they're able to thrive in the academic environment. I support current efforts that have begun. I know the district has worked on its DAG, the Disciplinary Action Guide. That's a great start. They need to continue with that. They've been receiving impact from Inclusionado, which has identified that bullying for LGBT students and minority students is occurring in our schools. This is fact. Students have come forward and said this. And so there is a gap there that needs to be addressed by administration. And so in regards to adding or modifying to these efforts would be to really push that DAG, push the discipline for violations towards students who might be of another race or might be from the gay community. The social emotional learning is a piece of that addresses how to interact, how to work together. And so I think a focus is to make sure that every student does feel safe every day to be who they are.
Candidate Mel Sandy.
How do you define a safe environment? A place where students can learn in an environment with no fear. I'll admit that I don't know a lot about the current efforts to fight this and what we should change. I do know that I do see a lot of bumper stickers out there that are almost encouraging hostilities, racism, some scary stuff. I saw a t-shirt. I was in the gym yesterday with Scott, and I don't know if you saw this, but there was a kid with a Navy shirt on the front and it said "No place for quarter" on the back, which I believe means take no prisoners, kill everybody. So I think there is definitely some scary stuff out there that needs to be dealt with. I just don't have any answers for that right now.
Candidate Nicole Boucher.
Hi. So as far as the bullying goes, I think we all should start with the adults and role model, and so that there isn't any bullying with the occurrence that happened with Tortilla-gate. I believe it was more the adults than the children, but maybe that's just my opinion. But also, I believe that children should be safe and have equal opportunity for a wonderful education. But at the same time, why label each person, according to the background? Why don't we just keep everyone equally educated, treat them all the same? And if there is an occurrence of a disruptive student, regardless of their background, discipline them, just discipline them. Each person needs to be handled according to their character, absolutely. And I do support more security for the schools as well. So that's all I have to say.
Candidate Renee Kavanaugh.
Thank you. I'd like to give you guys some examples of what safe, diverse, and equitable looks like in the classroom. Either it came from students or this issue came up about bullying and feeling safe, free of fear in your classroom. We started a program called, we would start having community circles in our classrooms where we would sit down every day in a circle as a group and talk about something, make a connection with another student. And with those silly little questions that we would ask and I'll answer, occasionally an issue would come up, and through those conversations, a student who learned differently than other students came out and said, "I learned differently than you, and it hurts my feelings when you make fun of me." For him to feel comfortable enough to say that is huge, to be able to tell someone how they're feeling. That's a safe environment in a classroom. It's through getting to know each other that way that you can prevent the bullying and prevent things like that from happening. Diversity in our classrooms is wonderful. It brings a richness of experience, either through students with different backgrounds or experiences, reading literature that's different, but yet still has that human connection that you can relate to. And whether you know it or not, teachers have been doing and assessing students through different means. And we know this. We know that students show their knowledge in different ways. So maybe a written essay is not the best way to show their knowledge. Maybe they show it through art and can explain their understanding that way. Those are ways that we can be inclusive of everyone and value their learning and their choices.
Candidate Jerry Meacham.
Thank you. As a retired teacher, you have about 1 week at the beginning of the year to set the atmosphere in the room, especially in the elementary years. If you do not establish rules and then abide by them and enforce them, then it will be a chaotic class. And I believe in chaotic classes, that's where more bullying can take place. So I think it starts with the teacher and it ends with the teacher. And my biggest goal was not to have any of my kids go to the principal because I wanted to handle it myself. And so when you establish an atmosphere of respect and you show that respect, kids learn from you. Bullying should not be tolerated, no matter who is bullying, no matter who is receiving the bullying. I don't care about what diverse, color, any kind of diversity you can imagine. It's wrong and it needs to be dealt with. The problem is a lot of it happens outside the classroom. And so on the playground, maybe that's an issue. So what we've done as parents, and I think this has been effective, is we've tried to coach our own kids through this issue. And we've helped them learn how to stand up for themselves. And sometimes it's been months of them coming home crying in the early years and us having to work through it. And a lot of times I didn't want to go to the teacher because it was happening on the playground. So the other thing I just wanted to say is if we hire fine professional teachers, that makes a huge difference on this area. And I also want to say to you that internet bullying is real, and there are adult activists who are engaging children on the internet in inappropriate ways and aggravating them.
Candidate Helen Anderson Cruz.
Safe, diverse, equitable. We've talked about these terms, but we haven't defined them. They could mean different things to different people. The Ed Code says every child is entitled to a safe and secure environment in the least restrictive environment and access to the core curriculum. And I think one of the ways that we can do that is to establish, as Jerry said, an atmosphere and a way that children must behave in your classroom. And you teach them that difference is not deficit. It's difference. It is not deficit. And I think that sympathy, empathy, kindness, and compassion are superhero attributes. When our children learn that, they are less apt to pick on other children, to make fun of them, or to be otherwise acting out as a bully. I think that the opposite of that would be divisiveness, intolerance, meanness, and name calling. When children feel like they are valued and that their peers value them, they're less inclined to be mean or to be picking on other children. Sometimes children don't understand differences, and sometimes that's why they act out. That's why it's so important that first month of school to establish parameters and to teach children how to behave, what is acceptable. You need to be systematic and explicit. And then the children, and they also learn from our model. Teachers need to say please and thank you. Teachers need to be polite. Teachers need to refrain from sarcasm and impugning the integrity of students. That is never a good methodology for teaching, as I think everyone on this panel has already pointed out. Thank you.
And the candidate Michael Iverson.
For me, this question is an interesting one, right? I'll tell you a quick story. I'm sure my wife's going to give me a hard time now. So When I first moved to this country, I went to work in corporate America, and I sat through an HR presentation where they talked all about diversity and how we were supposed to support diversity and do all these things as hiring managers, right? And so this is something I face every day in the corporate world. And for me, having grown up all over the world, diversity means a lot of things, right? And it really means to me multiculturalism. It means that people come from different backgrounds, they speak different languages. They may look different than you, they may act different than you, and a lot of that originates in culture. I think we as a society fundamentally at this point have gotten to the point where we want to try to legislate in what to me is just common decency, right? People should have respect for others. At some level, I think that starts with accountability and creating accountability for our students. I think a lot of people said that in different ways up here. And I don't think we do that in our school district currently. I watch my high schoolers, and again, my kids have gone to school in multiple districts around the country. We've had private school, we have charter schools, we've had public schools like here. And this is the least accountable my kids have ever been. When they get to the high school, they're largely left to their own devices and in making critical decisions. And that type of leadership, I'm sorry, comes from the teachers, it comes from the top, right? And I think we have to hold them accountable to, and you guys have said that about setting up expectations at the beginning of the year. And I wholeheartedly agree with that. I don't know if the program that we have today is working or not working, but I will say all kids show up to school not necessarily being inclusive or wanting to, bully other kids, right? So some of that starts with how we set up the classroom and the type of expectations we set for the children.
Thank you very much. All right, we're going to roll the follow-up for this into the next question. It's kind of a broad question. We're bringing in an audience question with us. The audience question, again, everyone wants the best possible education for our children. This will be a 2-minute question response. How would you define that? And to follow on to that, to make it practical, what are the top 2 or 3 policies to improve student education, reading, math levels, test scores, graduation, college acceptance rates, that you would work with the rest of the board to focus on during your tenure of service? So how would you define the best possible education, and what policies would you work with your fellow board members to achieve it? And if you could try to differentiate a little bit between elementary, middle, and high school, that would be helpful. And we begin with candidate Scott Youngblood.
Okay.
Green's on.
Green's not on.
No, is it on? You want this one? Good.
He had lost battery.
No, Brad.
Is it flashing?
No, it's on. Whatever one.
Okay. All right. So in terms of the best possible education for our children, obviously that's the most important thing. So I think it's important to do well on testing and obviously in your grades and get the best grades as possible. But I also think it's important to learn skills such as critical thinking, to look at data and to look at evidence and to try to reach your own conclusion about something, to be able to look at a data set and say, is the summary statement actually what the data reflects, what the evidence shows? And I think so critical thinking is very important. I also think that we need to realize that, and I think to a certain extent we have, that not every child is going to go to a 4-year college education or beyond, right? So some people maybe aren't necessarily interested in that, and they're quite frankly, they're critically important in our society. So we need to, and I think to a great extent, our schools have kind of recognized that and have an entire curriculum set up for students who aren't going to go on to college. So I think that's important. In terms of policies, I think a laser focus on academics and academic excellence is important. And I said earlier that the #1 budget priority for me as a school board member will be to seek out, hire, and retain the highest quality teachers possible, and if possible, reduce class size. because it's just obvious that teaching 30-some students is going to be much more difficult than teaching a class size in the 20s. So that would be what I would focus on. Yeah.
Candidate Alexia Palacio Peters.
I think best possible education is something that is individual to each child. And so we have to be able to support each child to achieve their best possible outcome. As Dr. Youngblood stated, not every child is going to go to a four-year college. They're going to go into other industries. And I think the district does a great job of having the CTEs, the career technical education, and various options for our students so they can go and be productive members of society at the ripe old age of 18. And so a couple of policies that I think we can look at is from the younger level elementary STEAM programs. I know we have some of those. We have VAPA, we have iLab, the technology programs. We just received a world languages grant from DODEA. And so children don't learn in a silo. They learn in a community, and they learn by interdisciplinary teaching. So not just learning math here, but math as part of art, that trigonometry with triangles and circles and being creative. And so I think that's one policy we can continue to look at in the lower levels. And I believe even when you get to middle school and collaborating between different disciplines. And then, yes, diversity of teachers. So continuing to hire and retain a diverse group of teachers that can come and really guide our high school students through the various options that are available.
Candidate Mel Sandy.
Hi, so in a perfect world, to me, the best education would be to develop a love of learning in children so they can be lifelong learners. And there's so much focus now on grades that I don't know how much learning is going on. So I think that would be ideal. As far as the three policies to focus on, of course, you want the best teachers. You want to pay them accordingly. I think Finland is the gold standard, right? You can be a doctor, a lawyer, or a teacher. Those are the three top, not Navy helicopter pilots. That's down at the bottom. So I'd also, sorry, Josh, there you go. I'd also, the facilities, I think we've got to get, again, the AC and maybe some solar panels to power it. But those are my three policies to focus on.
Candidate Nicole Boucher.
So I guess choice for the children to grow to their potential would be ideal. For me, when I was part of an exchange program when I was in my high school years. And so maybe having an opportunity to go abroad to mingle among other cultures would be optimum. Also, the teachers' involvement with the students would be a great opportunity to also increase their awareness for other cultures. That means that we have to get quality teachers, of course, but also the skills that you would obtain at high school level or even before. You want to help to encourage with the children. And so I think that would be great going forward.
Candidate Renee Kavanaugh.
Thank you. I think defining the best possible education is different now than when we were growing up, and knowing that it's going to be different 20 years from now because things change. For me, giving the best possible education for a child is meeting that child where they are with their needs. Just because you're a third grader doesn't mean you're necessarily ready to take on multiplication tables. It could be, it may not be, it may be that student's not ready for that yet. I think it's a little disingenuous for us to say we value all students and we value all learning and we value all occupations whenever we say college, 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 and there's nothing else out there. It doesn't, I don't think students hear that those other things are valued or important. So I think that we need to do more and not just say that we value all choices. I think we need to make some of those opportunities available for students. Some policies that I would be putting in place is credit recovery, more credit recovery options at the high school. and also more individual small group learning or support at the elementary level, getting that really good solid foundation where students feel like they are successful and they're proud of their own accomplishments will benefit them in the future and keep them wanting to be lifelong learners. They will feel like they can do it. And maybe they need a little extra time, maybe they need smaller classes, maybe they just need to hear the lessons in a different way, but really focusing on a good foundation at the elementary level.
Thank you. So results matter, and the test scores that I gave you earlier, I think we could use those and work backwards. So if you find that the high school age, you can look on the test, figure out which part of the test is weak in that grade level, go work backwards, have someone at every school site who can coordinate to make sure that the curriculum is meeting that problem. So there are ways to do this. Good school districts do this. They have people that are on that. And I think we can do that too. These scores are dismal and we can do better. This demographic, we definitely can do better. So I think we can utilize master teachers in the schools and retired master teachers who can help current teachers maybe with pedagogy, how they teach, so that their teaching methods are successful and are ones that work and that we can measure to make sure they work. So it's important at the elementary school that they all have the core subjects down before they get to the next levels. This is one of my favorite new little notebooks that I got. And I think this is what we need to be doing in middle school and high school. We need to teach them to do their own research. They need to be able to make up their own minds, and they need to be able to think for themselves.
Let's start with parents and babies and toddlers. Best thing you can do for your child to set a foundation is to read to your children on a regular basis, even when they get too big and tell you that they don't need to do it anymore. What do they know? Read to them, encourage curiosity. If your child is following you around asking a gazillion questions and driving you nuts, you are doing a good job. That's how you encourage learning at the primary age. I'm speaking to you now as a reading specialist. It's just, this is how they learn words, how they learn syntax, how they learn to communicate, how they learn enthusiasm. I still remember the Velveteen Rabbit, which made me cry, and Spot. Spot got lost everywhere, and Spot got into everything. He even pooped where he wasn't supposed to. So read to your children. Show them how much you enjoy reading. Let them see you reading. Minimize computer time. This is not a babysitter. I was distressed to see my grandchild knew how to work this better than I do. She's 11, but I'll leave that there. The second thing in elementary school through middle school is to help with homework. Don't do it for them, but monitor, keep in touch, ask questions, and then listen more than you talk. Stay involved, minimize criticism, especially with high school. I taught high school for 25 years, and I heard about their parents and how they didn't understand them. And of course they were wrong, but each kid is unique and wonderful. And our job is to help them actualize the full potential for the job they want, not the job we want them to have, but the future of their choice. Bloom's taxonomy starts with knowledge and goes to comprehension, application, analysis, synthesis, and evaluation. And as Jerry spoke earlier, synthesis, analysis, evaluation, that's how they learn to think. And that's what we're creating. And Mr. Bloom, thanks you for the plug for him.
Thank you. Candidate Michael Iverson.
So I think it's important that we, a lot of people have said this, but that we meet the kids where they are, right? So that we try to offer each of our learners at every level of our school district the opportunity to learn at their pace. And I realize that, we can't obviously have individual instruction, but I think we could do a better job of enabling the kids that are accelerating, supporting them in, whether that be through office hours that the teachers could offer, or incentivizing our teachers. I realize there are limitations with the teachers union, but trying to find alternative methods that we could incentivize our teaching staff to work with our kids outside of school that desire that type of thing. And also the kids that maybe aren't excelling, we can have programs that can support them. I think a good example, again, to come back to the 4x4, is we implemented this program to be able to offer our children more classes, right? More education. I think somebody brought up earlier that we have supposedly this program to teach kids that it's not just all about college. I don't think that's working. I watched my son graduate from Coronado High School, and in his group of friends, there's a significant group of guys there that probably aren't going to go to college, and they were not supported in Coronado High School to figure out what alternative education pathways were outside of college. And so these kids are now failing, and there's no support for them, right? And they're like, hey, I don't know where to go, what to do. And there was no support for them. So we failed them. Then they didn't fit the mold of going to college. Oh, well, too bad. So I think let's use the 4x4 system now that we've implemented it. And I want to be clear, I'm not an advocate of getting rid of it. I think that would unduly punish our children again. So let's make it work for us. Let's really go out and hire those teachers that we need to offer the alternative classes that we say we want to offer our kids. We're not doing that today. Let's support the learners within the system that we have.
Candidate Stephanie Anderson.
So if we look at having the best possible education for our children, what we really want is the best possible outcome for our children, for them to be successful and happy citizens, whatever future they choose. And that's going to always start in the classroom. Although always you want your class ratio as small as possible. The Coronado School District has a 19-to-1 average student to teacher ratio. Our other districts have problems having teachers. There's a teacher shortage, not our district. Our district has great teachers. They're very well paid. Always we work with them. They need to always know their value. They need to be listened to. When it comes to school board decisions, they need to be one of our first people we go to. They are the people on the front lines of our kids. When you're looking at the elementary school, what I would do, which I also mentioned before, was we need more specialists. We need more intensive tutoring specialists in the elementary school. Specifically, we need that math specialist back, or maybe more than one math specialist back. We also, at the high school, we have great AP classes. That's wonderful for so many of our students that value and excel in that. We also have COSA, which is an amazing program for children that are taking a slightly different path. We have the career technical program. I think that, as it's been mentioned, needs to be strengthened as well to mentor and tutor kids through maybe internships or other things that they are also passionate about. Every child is going to have a passion and can do fantastic in it. We just need to make sure to support them no matter what that passion is.
Thank you very much. All right, we are almost home, both figuratively and literally. We're going to move into closing statements by the candidates, about a minute 30 each. We'll give you some time to think about that. I had a minute, or right at that point where we do a full round of questions, we won't be out of here until 5:15. So we'll let you each do your closing statement, give you a minute and a half to do so. But before, I've got one last question for you. Forgive my long professorial preamble. There are two theories of how elected representatives should make decisions. The delegate model holds that it is the job of an elected official to represent the views of their constituents, even if those views conflict with representatives. The trustee model holds that elected representatives, as the Irish parliamentarian Edward Burke argued, owe their constituents the representatives' experience, morality, and judgment, and should vote accordingly, even if that view conflicts with their constituents. Constituents don't like it, they get fired at the next election. which model would you pursue elected? Would you pursue a delegate model, a trustee model, or it depends? There's always in between. How many of you believe your role on the school board would be to be a delegate, carrying out the way your constituents want you to vote? How many of you believe your role should be as the trustee,
Hey, Carl,
voting your conscience?
I'm not sure what you asked me.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, dude. I don't know what you're asking me.
Okay, so I talk about my role one at a time, because when you go to vote, when you make decisions, you have to ask yourself, whose values am I using? Are you going to be using your own opinions or those of your constituents? Because both are very political science. Both are the two dominant models of representation. You know, Edmund Burke said, you got to vote your conscience. That's what you owe your constituents. They don't know what's in the room. You have to use your wisdom. Some argue, though, no, your job is to do what your constituents hired you to do, and you find out what they want. You simply vote what your constituents want. If there's a conflict with your own views, you vote your constituents. That's the delegate model. Trustee model is you vote what you think is right, and your constituents can hold you accountable the next election. Do you understand that a little bit better? Just trying to figure out how you guys would see your role in voting.
I don't think that's a yes, no answer.
That's the third option. And I always tell my students, there's yes, no, or maybe. So again, you can just go through the delegate model. Put up your hands. Trustee model. And you're not somewhere in between the depends. This is good.
It's not a binary system.
All right,
Okay.
let us begin our closing remarks. Minute 30 or thereabouts, and we'll begin with Alexia Palacio-Peters.
Thank you, everyone, for being here today. Is this on? No? Should I shout? Because I could do that.
Try this one.
I hit the button again. Thank you, everyone, for being here today. I like to finalize by just saying I'm a parent of students here in the Coronado Unified School District. I'm a military spouse. I'm a former teacher, and I'm an attorney. And I'm here for 3 reasons. 1, the best interest of our students. Students are the most important thing in this school district. 2, I'm here to support our teachers. They have done a tremendous job pivoting over the last few years. We have hired and we're retaining some of the best, and we need to continue to support them as administration. And 3, I look forward to serving with transparency in a civil and professional manner, and hopefully with the trust of the community and the other school board members. Thank you.
Candidate Bill Sandy.
I like to think globally and act locally. That's why I'm running for the school board. I like to keep Coronado schools on track for incremental improvement like they have been doing. And I'll always represent the students and the teachers first with input from the parents. I do have one little anecdotal story about, I didn't talk a lot about the discipline and the racism and all that. I went to Catholic school 4th through 8th grade that had the Immaculate Heart of Mary nuns teaching. Think of the Blues Brothers, the nuns, the nun at the top, and they were just like that, same uniform. And the discipline was very severe, often brutal, and that did not take away the bullying. In fact, it taught kids how to bully. So it wasn't an environment where I encountered the most bullies I've ever encountered. So I just be a little bit wary of that. So.
Candidate Nicole Boucher. Here we go.
Hot potato.
Well, thanks again for having me here. I just want to reiterate that the parents are the first educators of their children. The children belong to the parents. Parents should be heard, and that's what I'm here for. Thank you.
Candidate Renee Kavanaugh.
I would like to say that I don't think our schools are broken. I think we have great schools here. Are they perfect? No. Is there room for improvement? Always. And with active and engaged community members and parents stepping up and taking the time to be involved, it'll make them better. I think our students deserve an honest and accurate education. I think they need to be challenged. I think they need to be offered opportunities to grow and to experience things that they may not think that they would like, or they would even have an opportunity to. That's our job, is to offer experiences to give them a wonderful, broad, well-rounded education.
Thank you. So my goal is to restore trust. I do think trust has been broken. The last year and a half that I've been going to the school board has been pretty chaotic. And so my way of doing that is to focus on academics, which is the #1 job of a school district. I'd like to keep politics out of the classroom, doesn't belong there. We need to protect core instructional minutes and have them completely about instruction, on-task instruction. I want accountability for the administration, and I want parent involvement. I think we need to be back in the classroom helping, and we got off of that from the pandemic. We need more transparency and accountability. We need to open up to the parents the curriculum so that they can see it not just in the district, but also online. Why not have the supplemental materials and the curriculum online all year so parents have a chance to review it and look at it if problems come up? We need local control. We need to shift from Sacramento, and we need to have more local control because we know the kids. The teachers know the kids, the parents know the kids, the people who live here do. Thank you.
Candidate Helen Anderson Cruz.
As a retired teacher and grandmother of a student at Coronado Middle School, I firmly believe that our job as teachers, as parents, as community members, as school board members, is to do what is in the best interest of children. And parents are children's first teachers. They don't send their kids to school a blank slate. You send us children with the values and the experiences that they've had in your family. And they are partners with teachers who then reinforce those values in the classroom. When students learn, because they don't come equipped with how we do things around here, they learn classroom behaviors. They learn classroom protocols. They're reinforced by the teachers. And then when you can get their attention and get them to sit still in elementary school, you can teach them. And you teach children by valuing them, not just giving them the ABCs of the 1, 2, 3s, multiplication, division, trigonometry, calculus. There's more to it than that. There's everyday interaction. There's research-based instruction, best practices, and you never sit still as a teacher if you want to continue to be a good teacher. You continue growing, attending conferences, engage in professional development that we have in our schools, and talking to and becoming engaged with parents. Parents are the friends and the support system of our teachers. Thanks.
Candidate Michael Iverson.
As a potential future grandparent, which hopefully is a ways off, but look, hopefully, I'm here for the kids, honestly. That's my core motivation. It's really, I think, about injecting parent leadership in the school board. And I'll come back to that, holding the school leadership accountable for the decisions they make. Trying to do the best that we possibly can with the funds that we have. No one's talked about the budget today. I find that kind of interesting. And given the fact that we potentially have the windfall, I've heard that spoken about, that's coming to us in a couple of years. No one's talked about that. The fact that the school board took out a $12 million loan to try to advance some of the things that they wanted to do. No one's talked about that. So I think, look, there's a lot of things out there that the school board has to deal with, but first and foremost, we should put our kids at the center of everything we do as a school board. I think we also need to practice good physical discipline. And then ultimately, as I said, I think we need accountability and probably some transparency and communication back to the community around the decisions that we're making. And that's really why I'm here.
I'm here because I want to be on your school board and I want to win your vote. I have a deep and long history in Coronado. I care about it. I'm a homeowner here in the village. I'm a business owner. I've got the background, the financial background that goes with that. I'm all in for Coronado. This is not a stepping stone for some other political agenda that I'm moving towards. I have the energy and the enthusiasm for the job. I'm really happy and excited to get out there and work hard for you. I also am not beholden to anyone for campaign money given by a particular party in the campaign, which is not true of all the candidates. In the end, if they are elected, they will be beholden to those parties. I want to, and always will, support and value our teachers. I also think that one of the ways we can be more transparent is I will commit to saying my why behind my vote. The board members can always vote, but to say why and explain your thoughts and listen to other people is very important. I will have an open door policy to parents, to students. I really want to encourage the students to get involved. What if they were involved with the school board? Wouldn't that be amazing? And also community members, because the community members care about the students too. If nothing else, our high test scores and our high reputation as a Coronado school protects our property values. And that's important too. And I want to protect all of that.
Hi, so I am I'm running to restore academic focus in the district and in our schools. And I'm also running to serve as a parent advocate and to try to restore the trust that perhaps has been lost with some of the parents in the community, and to improve that and to listen to them and advocate for their issues. And I'm also running to try to exert local control to the most extent possible in order to try to prevent things that don't represent our community here, that aren't state laws, right? But I think if I had to say one thing that I'm running for, is to try to get politics out of our schools. And so I'm not just talking about politics in the classroom. That seems kind of obvious. I'm also talking about things that came down from above and acted at the district level. And that includes like school lockdowns. When you look at that, there was tremendous harm across the nation. And those harms were largely avoided by those districts that were able to keep their doors open and kids in seats in front of their teachers, and the mask mandates, and then also even tortilla gate. All those things are infused with politics. And the worst part about all of that is that our kids were made to suffer and were in some cases scapegoated for those things. We need to, as adults, disagree as appropriate between ourselves and let our kids be kids and focus on academics. Thank you.
Thanks, you guys brought this in on time and under budget. Just one final word. Dr. Young let run up the term politics. You know the joke. What's politics? It comes from Greek. Poly, the many, ticks, blood-sucking insect. Everybody laughs. And I tell every group I ever speak to when I give that joke, that is the most dangerous joke that has infused our society in my lifetime. Politics for the Greeks meant you take the poly, the many, and you bring them together in the polis, the community. It's the process of politics. Ix is a transformative suffix in the ancient Greek mainland. Former Chancellor Constance Carroll was a classic major, and she made sure we knew that. Politics is the process by which we turn a bunch of people into a community. And the Greeks saw it as the greatest dedication of his life to the process of politics. It's been terrible that we have denigrated politics so, because without politics, we're all just strangers in a bus, and the most powerful are going to take advantage of us. These candidates, and this is why I use the honor of a candidate with you, candidates are those who have dared to get into the arena to sacrifice themselves to the common good. Whether you agree with them or not, whether you vote for them or not, you owe them your respect and your thanks, and I thank you all.
I thank everybody in the community for coming out. I hope everybody at home had an opportunity to live stream and watch this. I want to thank our video and audio video team for putting this together. Thank all the candidates for coming out and spending a Saturday afternoon on a beautiful day, answering some tough questions. And I want to, I don't want to thank.
We thank you.
And I want to thank everybody out there for being civil and participating in a positive civic experience. Thank you all for being here.
Yeah. All right.